Today we're building the best DIY action camera mount I have ever seen. This thing turned out awesome. It's an amazing build. It's a clamp mount for your camera that allows you to basically mount your camera to any pipe or handlebar or roll bar super securely, really fast, and in a much more secure and more stable way than using a handlebar mount or a roll bar mount. Let's build it. This is a bit more of a complex build than normal, but the parts you need to build it are really straightforward. The single and most important part of this entire build is the turnkey clamp. So this is a big clamp. It's a hose clamp, which instead of having to use a screwdriver to undo it or loosen it, has a built-on key that you basically just twist, and that allows you to tighten and loosen the hose clamp. If you're having trouble following along with the parts you need, you can find a full list of all the parts used in this project in the video description. You're then going to need some very small bolts. I'm using number 6 socket head bolts. You're then going to need a thin piece of metal. I found mine in my local hardware store in the house framing section. If you want to finish this mount really nicely and stop it from scratching anything you attach it to, you're going to want to pick up some thin rubber. What the stuff I'm using is a toolbox drawer liner. The first step is to cut down our piece of metal to the same shape as our adhesive mount. I started off using a rotary cutting wheel, but quickly found that using an old pair of tin snips was both faster, cleaner, and just all around easier. With it cut out, I got a file and filed down the edges just so I wouldn't cut myself if there was any sharp burrs left over after cutting. We now have to drill 2 holes through our buckle mount. I offset mine and just made sure to leave enough space between them to pass through the hose clamp. With those 2 holes complete, we're going to grab a punch and translate those holes onto the piece of metal, left a perfect indent on the metal below so I could drill those same holes through the metal. With all of those holes drilled, we're going to countersink the 2 holes we drilled to the GoPro mount so that when the bolts are inserted through the holes, the head sits flush with the top of the buckle mount. You want to make sure that those tops of those bolts are flush or even slightly recessed to the surface of the buckle mount. With all of that out of the way, it's time for assembly. We're going to start by passing 2 bolts through the holes in our buckle mount. Then we're going to grab our hose clamp, slide that up the middle, and then push on the piece of metal we drilled onto the bottom of that. We're going to spin on our 2 nuts and tighten them down. It'll take a little bit of time, and it will start to flatten out the hose clamp as it gets tighter. What you're going to notice at this point is that there's a lot of bolt left over. Grab a pair of pliers and just grab the end of the bolt that's sticking out, bend the end of the bolt back and forth a couple times with the pliers, and the bolt head will snap right off. At this point though, you do want to stop, grab a file off any sharp edges that are left so you don't cut yourself or cause undue scratches on whatever you're going to mount this to. This is where the rubber comes in. We're going to get out another GoPro flat adhesive mount and trace it out on the rubber, and then cut out 2 pieces of our thin rubber. Then we're going to take one of those pieces of rubber, lay it on the back of those 2 nuts, and cut out holes around those 2 nuts. Originally, I bonded the rubber to the back of the mount using contact cement, as I thought it would be a good solution for bonding the 2 surfaces. It turns out it didn't work all that well, and I went back later with hot glue, which worked much better. So if you're doing this, use hot glue. It's easy. It just works easy. It's easy to work with, and it did a great job. So we're first going to glue down that piece of rubber we cut with the holes in it, and that's going to cover most of the back, and it's going to leave us with a surface that is flush so that the nut heads, as well as that rest of the rubber surface are all at the same level. Now we can just lay down a little bit more glue and then slap on that second piece of rubber, and this will give us a perfectly smooth, scratch-resistant surface so we can mount this to anything we want and we won't scratch it. If you're concerned even more about scratches, you can cut a piece of rubber that's the same size around as whatever you're mounting to so that you can put that underneath the hose clamp itself before you mount it to something. With that, the mount is complete. It's a really cool mount because it's secure, it's quick and easy to mount to things. If you want to mount it to something you don't have access to either end, you can totally undo the hose clamp and then put it back together. But if you only want to loosen it and twist it a little bit or change position, you can just loosen it off a little bit and do that. Or you can slide it on and off of things. You can make it totally customizable with different sized hose clamps. You can use small ones or big ones. I'm probably going to make another one of these using a much bigger O-ring or a much, much bigger host lamp, because I think that'd be really cool. All in all, it's a super versatile mount that you can use to mount to all kinds of different things. They don't have to be round, but it basically replaces the roll bar mount and the handlebar mount. So for a couple of bucks, you can build your own DIY handlebar, roll bar, tubing mount, which is awesome. And it's a buckle mount, which means that once it's permanently mounted somewhere, you want to move your camera, you just slide it off the buckle mount. You want to put it back on, you just slide it on. So it's a much faster procedure for mounting and unmounting your camera than having to use a handlebar mount where you actually have to unscrew it and take it off of its buckle mount base. If you've got comments on this mount or ways to improve it, leave that down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Feedback is really important, and the way that these projects become even better. So do that. If you build one of these, I would love to see it. In fact, if you build any DIY action camera mount, send it to me over on Facebook, because it's awesome to see those things. And even better, I will share anything, all the mounts that you send me, with the community over there, so that more people can get inspired to maybe build their own DIY action camera mounts, which is good for everyone. So if you've got mounts, send them to me. But guys, most of all, until next time, thank you very, very much for watching.